Welcome to 68 Shining Moments presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Today, we catch up with Ed Pinckney and Harold Jensen from that incredible 1985 Villanova team that won the national title. All right, now pleased to be joined by two of the heroes from the Cinderella 1985 Villanova Wildcat team, and Eddie Pinckney, Harold Jensen. I appreciate you guys joining me and to relive, and I know you've relived it many a time, relive that memorable season, tournament, game. Let me start. Can I start with something, Eddie, of I want to know how, with all that talent, how you guys got a number 9 seed?
That's a question that not many people ask because, the focus is always on the actual game and how we got there and Massimino's brilliance in coaching us up to that point. But we were not a very good team. We weren't playing our best basketball during the regular parts of the season. And there were a number of reasons why. We, over the course of a year or two, lost some great leadership. I mean, we were just talking about John Pannone, Stu Granger, Mike Mulquin. Those guys were incredible leaders. There was a guy by the name of Frank Happy Dobbs who was on our roster. He's not noted as like a great player, but a great Villanova and a ridiculous leader. So we lost all those guys, and we were playing very uneven basketball during the season. We beat good teams, we played tough, but we never could put a consistent stretch of games together, and it left us with a 9 seed. Now, when I say we lost some games, we lost to the number 1 team twice in the country. We lost to the number 2 team twice in the country. 4 of our losses were to the best teams in the land. So we weren't playing cupcakes. We weren't getting upset. We were losing to Georgetown and St. John's, and those were, amounting to our losses, on top of how good Boston College was, how good, Providence was, Seton Hall. I mean, the Big East was absolutely brutal at that time.
Pitt.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was amazing. I mean, that was a great team. So,
Harold, take me through that first game. You get in the NCAA tournament. You're an 8 seed. You guys draw Dayton in Dayton, right? And that doesn't happen anymore in the NCAA tournament. I mean, that tournament was so different, right? You could play a team on their home court, number 1, no shot clock. Obviously you guys, no 3-point shot. I mean, it was totally different than what you're watching these days, wasn't it?
Yeah, and looking back on that, I'm pretty sure that was the last year that teams could play on their home court in the tournament. And if I'm not mistaken, they had won 14 or 15 games in a row on their home court. So we knew we were in for a battle. And I think we were kind of similar styles, similar physically, similar size to them. So it was it was a 2-point game, right? So it was a very, very even matchup. And, Coach Mass, I think maybe turning the tide a little bit. Coach Mass was known for winning first games in tournaments if he had a little bit of time to prepare. So, we felt confident coming into it, I think, but it was going to be a really tough, and it was a very tough matchup for us, for sure.
So take me through what happened at the end of that game. And I know your confidence hadn't been up here all year. And
no, not at all.
Play at the end of the game. Take me through kind of that for you mentally.
Sure.
What you had gone through that season, and to make that play at the end of the game, which people forget to some degree. You don't make that play, you got no chance of playing for a national title.
Yeah, I had a very slow start in college. Struggled freshman year. And was up and down sophomore season, spent some really great time, quality time with Coach Mass during the season. And he really worked on me. I was a challenge mentally for him, a handful to say the least. And he, along with Eddie, Dwayne, Gary, the guys, and Eddie always defers as a humble guy to the others, but Eddie and Dwayne and Gary were great leaders in their own ways, which was really interesting. And they supported me every bit as much as Coach Mass did, to give me just a positive vibe, a positive feeling when I got into games, down the stretch that year and in the tournament, and said, hey, if you're open, you got to shoot the ball, right? We need you to, be looking at the basket to put the ball up, and then just play solid, be aggressive, play solid, be confident. And, hearing that from those guys who I looked up to so much, and from Coach Mass, it just gave me kind of the confidence. And in that specific situation, when we were holding the ball and looking for a good opportunity, I saw a lane, really. And it was just, a split second decision to try and get to the bucket. Obviously turned out good.
So you get through that one.
Thank goodness. My man made that he cut into that lane and made that play. Because one of the things we would always talk about during the season was the tournament. Massimino did a fantastic job preparing the team. You never felt you weren't ready. Really? You just always felt ready to play in the most sick environments in the country during the tournament, man. It was always a lot of fun to get to that point for us.
So sure. you get through, and none of them are right. I mean, you beat Michigan, you beat Maryland, you get Carolina in Birmingham, right? That was a huge one, wasn't it? And
yeah,
wasn't there some memorable halftime speech by Raleigh on that? What was that? Like a spaghetti speech or something weird? You guys remember this?
We were. I mean, I'll jump in for a quick second, and then Eddie, please. But first half, I think 22-17, we're losing. Playing just not to lose, right? And just not having fun, and he could see it. And he came in his usual way, all messed up, and the hair all over the place. And he just sat there and he looked at us. He said, guys, if this means this much to you, that you just can't go out and play and enjoy the game that you love and that you're so good at, he said, I'd rather be home with my family, with Mary Jane, with a big dish of pasta and clam sauce and a pile of cheese on it, or whatever. He's like, that's what I'd rather be doing. I'd rather be, that's it. Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to suffer through this? And just relax, go out and do your thing. And Eddie, jump in. I mean, that's kind of the way I looked at it, or remember it. And he was, he kind of, popped the balloon. And he helped us kind of see that it was a game, and we were a completely different team in the second half, for sure.
So Eddie, reenact him is really difficult. The only teammate I have probably that could come close to reenacting his halftime speech during that game is RC Massimino, who I talked to yesterday. Probably the only guy that could come close, but Massimino just had a way about him. I mean, he connected. He made a point of connecting with all of us in his own way.
Yeah.
But the speech for me made me relax because he, just said, look, here we are, right? Nobody's expecting us to win, but I'm telling you guys, you're good enough to win. You're just good enough to win. I mean, and whether we win this game or not, I would love to be right now after this game is eating this whole pasta thing, and he starts with the histrionics with his arms and his hair, and he's jumping up there. I mean, and we're all looking at him like, this is typical him, man.
Before we continue that interview, I have to let you guys know that it's that time of year again. We waited 2 years for this moment, and it's finally here. March's biggest tournament is back. Gonzaga is getting ready to run the table. Slippers are being fit as we speak. And our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook, are putting our listeners at the center of the action. How? If you bet $4 on an underdog in a select game this week, and that underdog wins, you win $256. That's right, $256. Here's how it works. Download the app now and use the promo code FIELD68 when you sign up. Scroll through the list of select underdogs, bet $4 on them to win, and cash $256 when they do. There's no better way for you to put your college hoops knowledge to use than to put your money where your mouth is with DraftKings Sportsbook. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable, and you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. So remember, the code is FIELD68. That's FIELD68 to turn $4 into $256. For a limited time only, must be 21 years or older. Restrictions apply. Go to DraftKings.com for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You're like, I mean, you're thinking you're going to come in and he's going to tell you X's and O's and what you got to do and all this stuff. And instead he tells a story to kind of get you guys to think differently about.
Absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, I've heard this told about him in talking with other coaches who've coached against him in both high school and college. The guy was a coach's coach, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there were many times after he left Villanova to go to UNLV, then eventually to Northwood, where young college coaches who were in the game would seek him out for his knowledge of the multiples. I can't tell you, and Harold, maybe this happens to you. I don't know. I went to the NBA. There would be guys in the NBA that would come up to me and go like, yo, man, what kind of freaking defense were you guys playing? Like, you guys were always changing defenses. Like, you would, you know, play man-to-man.
Yeah, and so many variations.
He looked at the multiples, but it was like, and I marvel at our team because we knew it.
Yeah.
Like, to teach the multiples now, like I talk to coaches all the time, and they're like, you got to keep it simple. This guy was calling out 20 different defenses during the course of one game. I mean, it was we played. I mean, we all love Massimino to death. I mean, we just think you're a college coach, you think the world of, but that dude can coach, man. He really excellent.
And no wonder why Harold was a basket case. You're throwing all that at him. all those defenses.
On the double. Orange. You'd be like, huh? And you
not only that, but I couldn't play defense to begin with. So now
you better remember every, you know, Gary McLean would be calling out because he knew all this. I mean, you know, hey, man, we're in the one to double. What are you doing? And I mean, you would just go. It was unbelievable, man. The guy was just a fantastic coach.
Yeah.
So,
and he
so
kept his.
You get to the Final Four and you got Memphis State. What do you guys remember about just the – again, we'll get to the Georgetown game because that's what everybody wants to hear. But like, what was it like for you guys? You get to that Final Four. Are you now just playing with house money? Like, any great stories?
We're playing with meal money, not house money.
Because it kept going up. The further you went in the tournament, the more you got.
Good point. Eddie knows that because as he went further, his draft stock went up and up and up, right?
I wasn't even thinking about the draft. All I was thinking about was like the $7 or $8 we would get so we could go to the Waffle House. I'm like, we get $7 more. Oh my goodness! We got to win this game.
What was that Final Four? Just the build up, the that you were there, that you because you guys hadn't the last few years in the program, you guys hadn't gotten over the hump of the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was something that the coaching staff and I give all the credit to them in the world. Mitch Bonagero, Marty Marbach, those
Harry
guys.
Booth, Steve, Coach
Harry Booth. All they talked about was like, we got to get to the Final Four, and this is how we're going to do it. They gave us a great roadmap, and we had an opportunity to do it, but Clyde Drexler said not this time. Michael Jordan the year before, he said, nah, not this time. Elite Eight, good for you guys, but not the Final Four. I mean, like, we ran into some buzzsaws on the way to the Final Four. And look, like, nobody wanted it more for the other guys, but the guys who came before. Like, you get guys would come back on campus and be like, man, you guys got to do it this year. I mean, it was like we had the team and then we had the guys who played before. I mean, it was a great environment to be in at that time. There was just so much togetherness from the coaching staff and the players, and everybody wanted it for you. So I'm not going to say it made it easy, because we had to play against some crazy teams, but you had a lot of people rooting for you, man.
Harold, give me your greatest story going into that Final Four.
After beating Carolina to get there, we came back to campus, and coach said, hey, there's a few people that want to see us. And there happened to be, 14,000 people. Maybe that's a little bit of an embellishment, but in the Jake Nevin Fieldhouse, which held about 1,800. And we went in there, went back around. There was a stage on one end of that old gym where we used to play. And we went back in around. The curtain was closed. They pulled the curtain back, and it was just a sea of craziness in front of us. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget each of us having a chance to say a couple things. And as crazy as it was, everybody was really listening. They really wanted to hear what we had to say, but also, to thank them for just incredible amount of support, that they were giving us at that point in time. And Coach Mass said he said, we're not done. We're not done. We're grateful to be in this position. We won some close games and we're on our way, but we're not done. And it was incredible emotional journey for us during that stretch, to have accomplished that. And especially for Coach, who had been to that point before a number of times and hadn't, gotten through that. I think for all of us, that was a really good feeling.
So, all right, well, fast forward, Georgetown, national title game. You had lost to them twice, but played them tough that year, right? You played them tough. I think one of the games might have been an overtime game at your point.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you had been dominated by them, but they had Ewing. No offense, Eddie, but you right?
No offense. Look, we're like best of friends right now. I text him after almost every one of his college games.
Yeah.
And
he's a terrific coach, by the way. He's doing a great job.
He's a good coach, but like as a player and an NBA Hall of Famer, and I hope you don't get in trouble for me couching it this way, but most people were scared shitless of that dude. He was like as fierce a player as they come. And I hear him tell stories about the players on his current team, because some of them, they all obviously know who he is, but they don't know the fierceness, his entry into college basketball coincided with Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan wasn't the guy. It was like Patrick Ewing, man. And I tell guys who, haven't been around a long time, see that, like that dude?
That was
was the dude. He was the dude, man.
So
it was.
Yeah.
So you say that his fierceness, how intimidating he was, but you had gone up against him enough at that point. Was there no intimidation factor in that game?
Oh, hell no. I mean, like, I was like, I need, like, Jensen, Presley, both McLeans had played against them in high school. So, like, I needed all of them telling me, like, yo, this is going to be all right when you play against this dude. This is what you need to do. On top of, like, the coaching staff saying, hey, we're going to attack it this way. Because the guy was, like, the running joke for us was to watch them play against people out of our conference.
Yeah.
We would just laugh because we'd say, like, boy, I mean, we can't wait until these guys see how fierce this team is. And almost every game for 4 straight years, whoever they played against, the score at the beginning, like in the first 5 minutes, it was always like 20-2. I mean, it was
so
just
intimidated.
Just game was over
on the floor. Right? I mean, that was the thing. Is like they were just mean, tough. Like, it was. I mean, it was like you're
very physical
just by walking on the floor.
Well, no, like, so here, this guy here with the hat on and his teammate McLean, right? So, like, they had to bring the ball up, like, getting the ball up court was like
hard.
A whole practice.
Yeah, what was it like, Harold? Describe what that was like that game.
So I'll start it by saying that one of Coach Mass's, I think, what seems simple now maybe, but looking back on it, most brilliant moves was putting us against 8 people in practice to simulate what it would be like with the length and the agility and the intimidation factor. And we would literally practice, 5 on 8 to try and get a feel for what it was going to be like. Despite all that, I think had 6 turnovers that night. But we brushed that aside. Yeah. But they were incredibly, they were intimidating. I mean, that was you had to, for me personally, I had to sum up every ounce of passion and like energy and strength that I possibly could to go out there and say, this is going to be an absolute war, because it was a war when you played them. It was an absolute war. It really was. It was super aggressive, physical, nonstop banging bodies, elbows. Like, it was crazy. It really was. I mean, it still hurts a little bit.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of basketball.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of practices. 8 versus 5.
That's awesome.
Who does that?
That's so good.
Who does that?
I wish I could have seen that. Like, we need tape of that. Like 8 versus 5. Like, you'll go 6 on 5 sometimes, right? You might throw an extra body in there, but you're not going 8.
Yeah.
And then the guy, like, if there's a turnover, the guy's Massimino, like, is in practice, like, how could you turn that over? Do you know what that means? I'm like, we're playing against 8 people. This is crazy, man. I don't care. You got to bring the ball up court. You got to get it up court. I'm like, oh, man.
Gary was unbelievable in that.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. I mean,
he was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, he really single-handedly broke that press 90% of that game, with the exception of a couple times we helped and threw the ball up court or whatever. He literally cracked that pressure the whole game.
I mean, you got, like, it was remarkable. Like, you didn't miss shots. I don't remember what the final, like, didn't you shoot like 78% or something from the field that game? It was like an NCAA record.
Yeah.
You didn't miss shots. Take me through, and Harold, I don't think you missed a shot in that game. Take me through kind of, and Eddie, you were sick. Weren't you sick going in?
I was about to mention that.
It was nerves. It wasn't sickness. I was like, when I got nervous, I would always cough, man. And that, I was coughing my head up in that game.
Yeah, he was having a coughing fit right before the tip.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like, yo, this game against these dudes? Oh, my goodness, man. Billy, aside from like Ewing, like Billy Martin, like, we were all contemporaries and stuff. But like you had so much respect for these guys as players, and you're getting ready to play this game, and I got Billy Martin looking at me like, man, I am getting ready to get in your shit right now. I mean, I'm getting in your shit, and I'm like, oh man, okay, here we go.
So how did you guys win? I mean, looking back on it now, like, how did you guys? I mean, one of the greatest upsets in NCAA tournament history. We know that. As it's going on, when do you feel like, hey, you know what? We got him here. I think we got him. When was that?
Eddie, I'll just 2 seconds on Eddie. I think utmost respect to Patrick. Eddie played Patrick as well as anybody played Patrick. If probably better than everybody played Patrick. And I think coupling Eddie's ability to score against Patrick, to make his offense difficult, and then Gary's, handling the pressure that night, it gave the rest of us, meaning myself and Harold Presley and Dwayne McClain, I think it gave the rest of us the opportunity to pick our spots and, find openings, because they knew, our goal was to try and get the ball to Eddie as often as we could to try and create foul trouble, all that, right? But we knew what we were up against, and Eddie said before about seeing other teams compete against them and kind of laughing at it. And, we knew what we were up against. If there was anything that we had as an advantage, it was just knowing the opponent. And Eddie playing against Patrick, 4 years in a row. And we had a great front line. Like Eddie, Prez, and
Presley,
Dwayne, like we had a real front line. We had a good front line, really good front line, and super smart players.
Like I opened with, how the hell did you get in number 9 seed? You had a really good team. You did. Now they just had the name. They had the intimidation. It was Georgetown, right? It was Georgetown. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the game, Eddie, I think they had the turnover. Right? Didn't they have a turnover at the end of the game?
Yeah, Dwayne. Yeah. Well, actually, we were taking the ball out, and that was a whole sequence of crazy things that happened with attempted charges. But eventually, we inbounded the ball, and Dwayne McClain fell on the ground and just started screaming, and screams of joy and stuff. But that's only when I felt like, all right, this is finally over, because the last minute of the game, they were trying to win, and it wasn't like we had this large margin or anything. I mean, we were still kind of focused in on the game, and we had Massimino and the rest of the coaching staff telling us, like, listen, keep going. Don't allow them to take this away from us. We have it, but we have to secure it. So, Dwayne securing the ball kind of told me, like, this is it. We finally got it.
Yeah.
Give me the greatest story after that game. Whatever it is, the coolest thing that happened to you, the party that will forever be remembered in infamy, whatever it was. Give me kind of the moment after that game that will always stick out to you.
You go first, man, or you.
Yeah, I got so many thoughts. I think getting back to the hotel, each of the teams had their own, hotel, and getting back to our hotel and pulling up and seeing, this throng of people outside the hotel waiting for us, right? And it was literally, I don't know how many people were there, but it was literally, a 50-foot walk between getting off the bus and getting into the hotel. And it took an hour.
Really?
It took an hour, literally, for all of us as we got off the bus to make it into the hotel to finally see our families or whoever was there. because that crowd would not let us go. Like, it was just one embrace after another, and tears and high fives and screaming, and it was incredible. I mean, it's another thing I will never forget, is just that moment of pulling up and seeing that sea of people in front of the place, and taking, an hour to get into the hotel. And then, we kind of went room to room that night, just visiting and partying and having a fun time. I was calling people at 4 a.m, from the hotel room, and talking to buddies and all that kind of stuff. And it was just, nobody slept. And obviously back on a flight, the charter flight early that next morning, and into Philly for the parade, which was incredible. It was quite a stretch of 24 hours, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was nuts. For me, I have 3 things, right? So my dad, who, God rest his soul, no longer here, but never showed any emotion, ever, was just, and just the look on his face post game, so happy, hugging the rest of my family members. That was a memory I will always have, with him showing so much emotion. Second thing, Jake Nevin was our spiritual,
guide.
Sure. He at the time was sick. I love Jake Nevin, man. I mean, he was just he was always somebody who stands out to me, when I talk about my Villanova career, because he just made me laugh. He was fun to be around, and so he was there, and I was so happy to see him and stuff. And then, Harold, you mentioned the third thing. That parade was crazy.
Yeah.
You don't always get to go into a parade. I don't care who you are. We're getting ready for this parade, so everybody's doing the parade thing, and we're on the float, and we're number one. You can't do that. You can't. Yeah. Not many things
prepare for that. You don't ever imagine that's possible, correct?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No, you don't. I mean, maybe great NBA, but you never think the parade through in college. I'm on the float. I'm in downtown Philly. There's everybody. It's euphoric. It really is.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of people in the street, up in the windows, looking out of buildings,
right?
Streamers coming down. I mean, it was the stuff that you watched on TV. It wasn't something that you participated in. You saw,
like you said, especially in a pro sports town. You're not getting that. Who's getting that?
Yeah. I think one of the greatest pictures too. One of the pictures, and I've looked through a little memorabilia lately, but one of the greatest pictures is Eddie holding up the national championship trophy right in Center City, Philly, and seeing the sea of people behind them, and our teammates kind of gathered around him. It's just it's an amazing feeling. Amazing feeling.
Listen, it was an amazing run. I appreciate you guys taking a few minutes. Never to be forgotten. I mean, obviously not by you guys, but not by anybody. I mean, that was one of the greatest games, one of the greatest runs. And again, I appreciate you guys taking a few and reliving it.